So I'm ready to start work now, shaping the back plate and the top plate for the Archtop mandolin. Now I'll make no bones about it, the way I work, it is actually physically hard work to shape these. And what comes of course with the physical hard work is the mental challenge, you know, the kind of stamina to push on and keep going. So I think it's essential that what you have to do is remove as much of the waste wood as you can, quickly, effortlessly if possible, and then you've got the stamina left, if you like, both mental and physical, to work on the refinements of the curves, etc. With the first Archtop that I did, being unsure of how the carving was going to turn out, the plates were about 21mm thick. Now I've got these plates at about 17mm thick, so straight away you can see I've got 4mm less to deal with, and that's about confidence. That's about thinking, okay, I know how far I can sort of push the limit, if you like. The next thing is to remove as much of this waste from the external profile as possible, as quickly as possible, and the way that I'll do that is with my safety planer. So that's my setup for the safety planer, all pretty self-explanatory. Obviously the card's there to try to catch some of the dust that gets flung everywhere. So I shall start taking my rough cuts. So I just use this to increment my my depths of cut, so that would be the first one. Just put a line on here as a rough guide, and I must emphasise that all of this is going to be rough work. Right, so I guess I've spent about 45 minutes on we're using a safety planer, and you can see that I've roughed out, and I use the word rough deliberately, roughed out the back and the top plate. I mentioned about confidence earlier, and really that's about as confident as I would go with the safety planer at this stage. Once I start carving it with the planes, shaping it, I may well use it again just to kind of even out the edge. But for the time being, we're over to the bench and starting to use the planes. Right, so that's all clamped down. We're ready to start getting this outside shape. I've recently made 2 more of my wooden planes. These 2 are made specifically for working on the outside. So this one is completely flat in this direction, but curved along its length. So that should be quite good for this sort of work all the way around. And this one is flat along its length, but it's curved this way, and I've made that to see whether that will be any good for doing a recurve. So time will tell. And as I said before, when I made these, you know, you don't want to be too precious about these. I may well be changing those profiles as we go along. So yeah, a little bit of planing to do. So really this is the enjoyable part of the carving process. Using the planes to generate this external profile. And I must admit this particular plane with the curve that way, straight that way, is working very well. So as I thought, I've made this particular plane flat across, curved in that direction. I've increased the curve along the length, and that allows me to get into this part of the archtop profile much better. So at this stage, where I'm nearly at the profile, I've gone over to cabinet scrapers, because what I don't want to do is use a plane and a plane to tear the grain and then have to take too much away to get rid of that tear. And like I said before, it's about having confidence, how far you can go with a particular tool before you then have to change over to a finer one. And that's what this is about. So I've scraped that now to the profile that I want, and now it's time to don the old dust mask and start sanding. Well, after all of that work, there is the external profile of the back plate complete. And I had to give it a coat of sanding sealer because I was quite excited to see what the rippled flamed walnut would look like, and hopefully you can see it catching the light there in the camera. So that's the back plate done. Very, very pleased with the way that's turned out. And now really exactly the same process will be repeated on the Sitka spruce for the top plate. So I'll crack on with that now. So I haven't got this side exactly how I want it. This side's kind of roughly how I want it, but what I can see is that this whole kind of recurve along here needs quite a bit more work. So there we are, top and back. External profiles carved, and now we have to flip it over and start on the inside. So I drilled some holes as a rough guide for the depth, but I'm not dead keen on removing a lot of material like that. I'd rather use my planes. As I said before, this metal one works a bit like kind of a scrub plane. You can remove quite a lot of material quickly. And then when I get close to the depth I want, I'll start using my own planes, which are a bit more refined. after all of that planing, scraping and sanding, that's the inner surface of the back plate complete. So I'm at the stage now where I'm refining the thickness of the top plate. And what I like to do is draw a grid on the plate, and then with the calipers measure it and then write down those dimensions. Always use a 6B pencil, so it's really soft so you don't damage that inner surface. And then with those dimensions on there, I can compare it to what I've done before, know where I need to remove wood, and hopefully replicate what I've done and have a consistency in the instruments. Right, so after planing, scraping and sanding, that's pretty much the top plate completed. I've still got my grid on here. I've just marked the final dimensions on there, so I'll transfer that onto my chart, so I've got a record of the thickness of this top plate. And as I say, by keeping records, it helps you to improve and, if nothing else, to keep consistent. So the next job then is to give that a light sand to get rid of those pencil marks, cut out the sound holes, and then glue on the tone bars. But that's all for another day. So until then, thanks for taking the time to watch the video. You keep well and safe, and we'll see you next time. Okay then, cheers.